What do you want to do today? Because we're going to talk about game characters in the game world. Um, do you have anything? Last week you had a whole lot of stuff in the avatar, which was cool. Have you done sort of anything designy during the week?
Nothing in particular. It's been a lot of yeah, getting sort of those programmy bits
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking about the game world a lot when I'm designing it. I did
Mm-hmm.
watch a video a few weeks ago. I wish I could remember it. Maybe I'll find it later and we can put it in the video description or something. But
Mm-hmm.
it was someone who designed a level in that PlayStation game where you make games in the game. I forget what it's called. And yeah, they were talking about, like having landmarks and leading the player's attention and how you can create interesting environments. So that's running through my head through one half of my brain, and then the other half is thinking about the theming of it and trying, even in this early stage, to capture the right feel for, rural Australian outback town.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the extent of my game world design at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll talk about this stuff first and see where we get to. There's other stuff that I can go through if we don't necessarily have that much to do within the game characters and game world side of things. So let's should we just play on one? Let's see
Yeah, sounds
see
good.
what happens. Okay, so game characters and world. So we hopefully you remember. This is kind of what we're dealing with. So we've got the player experience, and then the game, which contains the avatar, game characters, and game world. We talked about the avatar last week. Um, so if you're interested, please go back and check the previous videos. I'm sure they'll be there somewhere. So game characters. If we have a look here, so the first one we've got here is game characters. So not that much different in many ways from sort of what we're seeing with the avatar. So it's the same kind of thing. Still have a personal relationship, functional relationship. And really, the art and story are the main thing that you need to be thinking about at this kind of level. Genre and theme again, we've already defined that in the highest level, so it is relevant definitely, but we don't need to sort of redefine it when we're talking about game characters and game world. Same thing, pretty much exactly the same. Still have the same kind of relationships. You can define these functional relationships in the game world the emotion, personal relationships, emotion, mind, mental state, meaningfulness, and any particular social interactions. Also, and then the art and story. So, of course, game characters can involve player characters. You're obviously not doing a multiplayer game, so we don't really need to worry about that. All your characters are going to be NPCs. So that's all fine. It's all good. But if we had other player characters, we'd probably we would definitely need to go into that as well. But that certainly complicates things a hell of a lot. The other thing to keep in mind is that the game characters, the NPCs, also have a functional relationship in the game world, or sorry, a functional relationship with the game world. So even if the player is not interacting with game characters, the NPCs, then they're most likely, well, they're generally going to be doing something. We don't kind of like seeing game characters just standing around, staring out into the space until we interact with them. Have you thought much about this? What's going to happen? What sort of relationship? What's going to be happening with your NPCs? What are they going to be doing in the game world when they're not interacting with the player? Have you thought about things like that?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Not particularly beyond sort of the storytelling by their positioning in the world.
Uh
So,
huh.
having certain characters at certain locations, whether they're in the servo or if they're at the pub, or, if you find a character who's out in the quarry, sort of the storytelling that comes from that sort of
Mm-hmm.
relationship. But Yeah, no, I guess it's sort of just fallen down the priority list. In terms of where we're at with the design and in how
Hmm.
they're specifically interacting with the environment. But my mind's jumping to all sorts of different ideas now that you've mentioned it.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think as I said, it used to be sort of okay, maybe 15 or more years ago, that your NPCs might just be standing there doing nothing until you walk up to them. It's not very realistic in most games these days. Your NPCs are doing something. Um, so you think of, although actually, interestingly enough, I'm thinking the in Elden Ring, the what's it called, the stronghold, not stronghold. Where do you go? Where you upgrade your
I can't
weapons?
remember the specific name, but just like the hub, I
Yeah, the
suppose.
hub. And actually, in that, they are just standing there, aren't they? They're just
Mhm.
standing around waiting for you to come up and talk to them.
I do. I feel like a lot of the things I'm thinking about, it is a case of like they are in one specific location almost always, but
Hmm.
it's sort of yeah, like are they? What little things are they doing? I'm thinking about Kuno in Disco Elysium. Um, he stands out in the backyard and is just pelting rocks at the dead body that's hanging there, and it's like he's always in that spot, but
Yeah.
the actions, the small animations, and even the reaction to the player, I guess. It's like, when the player's not nearby, he's throwing rocks, but when you get close, he crouches down. Um, and so, yeah, exists in the world, but also acknowledges the player um, and switches between
Hmm.
those sort of relationships, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. So when I think about these sort of things, I'm also thinking about say 7 Days to Die, where you've got zombies and you've got animals as well. So and the zombies do sort of wander around the world and things like that. So in that sort of game, this whole sort of functional relationship between the game character NPCs and the game mod is particularly kind of important because it's kind of it's an open world game. You can go wherever you like, and uh, you get small hordes of zombies coming through occasionally and things like that. You'll also get the animals the animals and the zombies fighting each other, which is kind of interesting. And if you kill an animal, um, the zombies will detect it and run to it and eat it. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on in there. It's probably more obviously I think more in a game like that, an open world sort of survival game, which is definitely a PvE type of game.
Mm.
More than sort of in the sort of
I
game
guess
that you have.
I guess my brain associates NPCs maybe more rigidly than we're talking about in this situation as game characters.
Hmm.
Um, because I hadn't even considered things like zombies, and I'm assuming you'd put things like the cars on the road in GTA under this category of the game characters.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty broad. In fact, I'll show you in a minute some of the things that I've listed as characters, and you'll be like, "Hang, is that a character?"
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. The concept of character is kind of broad. Look, this is a tool to help you in your design. So whatever works really. So game
Mhm.
characters, yeah, they can be cars driving around, animals, robots, sort of really anything um, that
If I
sort of kind
can
of comes under that. Yeah.
derail this just a tiny bit more,
Right.
because I was thinking I've been playing a lot of Watch Dogs, which kind of felt like Ubisoft's attempt to match like GTA and Saints Row.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm just thinking about driving as the main thing, and I feel like every game where you can drive has other cars around,
Yeah.
and it's not something that had crossed my mind to include in Arvo, but I'm now wondering, am I missing something really important as to why there's other cars on the road, is it just to have dynamic moving obstacles when you're driving, or am I maybe just not experienced enough in driving games to know other games where there aren't any cars on the road? I don't know if you have any insights on that.
Well, have you been planning to have other vehicles on the road?
Uh, no, but maybe only just for sort of that. You have that one moment where you're like, "Are there cars on the road?" No, I don't think so, and then it doesn't come up again. It's not something I've actually interrogated in the design process.
So I think about Death Stranding, I guess, because it is a similar thing. It's is your world is a post-apocalyptic world, isn't it?
Yes, but
Yeah.
only localized.
So a local post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, that's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah,
So, and the whole idea is that your character is delivering stuff for other NPCs who
yeah. That are
can't
far less mobile.
that are less mobile. Why are they less mobile? Actually, what is it about them
Uh,
that means they can't deliver their own packages?
I guess a lot of the robots, the machines that have, because they are machines that have become sentient, doesn't automatically give them the ability to be mobile. And I guess a lot of the machines we have today are stationary. So,
Uh-huh.
if a self-serve checkout gains consciousness, it doesn't also gain legs with that. Um, but it's probably something that is going to be very heavily reliant on the design, like the visual design of the art assets in that sense.
Right,
Um,
right, yeah. Well, I'm actually thinking. Oh, so I'm thinking, yeah, back to Death Stranding. Why people couldn't deliver their own stuff? It was because of the BTS, of course, because it was
mhm.
dangerous. Um, but your Arvo doesn't have danger in it. It doesn't have sort of.
Not for the player, but for the NPCs. We've talked about the idea of
Okay.
having these uh, actors in between towns that
Uh-huh.
you can drive into, and if you impart enough impact, they will be destroyed, and giving the sort of narrative context that these are somehow harmful viruses to the artificial intelligence,
Oh, okay.
which the NPCs have. So it's not a threat to you, but you are helping out the NPCs in the game by destroying them. So I guess, uh, yeah, I see what you mean. Like there is maybe uh, something we could look into to further justify the need of the player to be doing these deliveries, other than the NPCs just not having the capacity to drive their own cars.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So maybe I don't know some rationale, but having some sort of danger sounds fine. So if there's something that can get them, absolutely. So having a
Mhm.
virus, I remember you saying that earlier on. So yeah, cool. So I'll show you a couple of examples. A couple of examples. Um, yeah. So this is again from Silent Hill. So you can see here I've got game overview here. We've had a look at this before, so there's quite a lot of stuff here in the upper level. And you can sort of link to the pages from here, or you can just jump down here. So we've got the avatar. We also have, let's have a look at the game world here as well. So, yeah, so there's quite a lot of stuff here. Uh, and then you'll notice there is a lot of text, even though we are using a visual, we are sort of depicting these things visually as well. It's pretty hard to get away from other forms of communication as well. I think when you're designing games, because you're trying to communicate sort of so much. So text is almost, you kind of have to have text diagrams and things like that. So yeah, so this is the game world. It's pretty simple in Silent Hills PT, because it's basically just an L-shaped corridor in a house. So it's pretty basic. And in fact, we can see it down here. So I've also put a map in there as well. So stuff like this obviously is going to be kind of useful. Um, and then relationships and interactions, and also got child actors down here as well. So there's sort of within so the doors, the swinging light, if you remember that, the swinging fridge, terrifying thing, etc., etc. So there's a whole lot of stuff there, and then we've got the game characters as well. And here we go. So non-player characters. Now this is where I'm saying that I have sort of been fairly liberal with what I call a character. So Lisa's the one that, if you remember Lisa, do you remember Lisa?
Yeah, that's the
one
very
who,
nice lady.
yeah,
Definitely
exactly.
doesn't do any harm to you.
So I've also included the husband there as well, because to me, to understand the story, I mean, the husband is definitely a character, even though well, there's a question there, is like, in the game, am I the husband? Am I the murderer? So, so I've included the husband in there as a character, even though there's, unless we are the husband, there is no representation of the husband apart from maybe the photos. Remember the photos of the yeah, so maybe that. So then there's also the embryo. Remember the embryo character
In the sink?
Yeah. Because the embryo does talk to you. It actually says things to you. And I've also included the radio. So, I mean, the radio, because, I mean, it's essentially the main storytelling vehicle in the entire game. So I've kind of included as a character because there is this, it's not exactly interaction, but you're getting a lot of information from that. So it's almost like a character without a body. It's like, think of the archetypal characters. Is it the Herald? Are you familiar with the sort of narrative theory, the archetypal sort of archetypal characters in narrative?
No, not
you haven't
particularly.
done that. So there is one which is the Herald, which gives you information. So basically, the radio is that type of character. He's like a herald type of character. And then there's also one we didn't see in our playthrough, but there is a talking bag. Strangely enough, if you die, and I've sort of got obviously I've sort of elaborated on the things here, but if you die and go back to the beginning, the talking bag is there, and it says various things to you. It's kind of bizarre. And so then we have very various descriptions, and we have the full full page as well. So if we were doing a sort of real game here, or if this was a designing, we'd actually this is where we'd start having our concept art of the characters. So obviously, your artists are going to have to go through and pretty much come to like a low level page like these character ones. So if you've got your artist doing Lisa, then they'd have to come into here and check out sort of what was in here and do create the actual the models and the textures. Husband the same in here, so yeah, I've sort of set that in there. It's a little, obviously not so much there. Embryo, we've got the radio, a little bit more for the radio. The radio is pretty cool, and the talking bag as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much the type of thing we're getting to. That's what we're trying to create. Obviously, this is the sort of high level representations, but at the end of the day, we want to be down, and the whole idea is to oops, not that one, is to create sort of documentation at this kind of level that our development team can use. So, any comments or questions?
Nothing. I mean, I'm enjoying the visual of like an artist coming to one of these pages and using it to start working on like the game asset.
Yeah.
It helps me frame how I should be kind of writing these documents, keeping in mind, who they're kind of intended for, and I guess reinforcing that idea that this is in one part to sort of, you know, save time in a way. The idea that the designer writes it up and then your artist or programmer has permanent access to it, and so it should answer 90% of the questions they might have. And then also for me, I feel my design decisions can change over time if I don't keep a good track of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like sort of solving those two main issues. And so yeah.
The other thing here as well is that, you know, if you bring on a new artist, you're designing, you've got a game, you're getting a dev team together, you bring in a new artist, and you say, hey, I want you to do this. So that's all fine, and obviously you've got, well, hopefully in an ideal world, you've got lots of information on this page, but also what I've sort of very deliberately done in sort of designing this kind of system is that, and from personal experiences as well, is that, the artist who's doing this also has access to the other levels as well. So they can come here and say, okay, so hang on, the game characters overall, what are we looking at here? If they want to go and look at, even an idea of the game world, where the character's going to be, what the avatar is going to look like, and then sort of the whole entire overview. So if they've got questions at any particular time, any one of your development team can go to sort of the higher level and get maybe a higher level idea of what you're trying to do, which is particularly useful. And I think I have mentioned this to you before. I've had this experience working as a programmer in some development teams, and you come across a question and it's like, the person in charge of the design is often not available, and sometimes you're left to answer. You've got to have these questions answered for you to keep going, and like you're running it with a deadline. So often, if you're working on Agile, you've got a sprint, and so you need to have your sprint done so you can do your demo, in a week or so, or even a few days. And so you have to have this question answered, and it's like, well, no one's available. You talk to your line manager or whatever. Hey, do you know what the answer to this question is? Like, usually they're like, oh, no idea. And the person, the designer, like you, may be off working on another game at this point, doing pre-production for something else. So one of the reasons for having this is, the developers can sort of come up and look at these levels. If they have to answer a question, they can at least do it with a little bit more knowledge than if nothing at all. So that's kind of the way. That's why we have this hierarchical structure there as well.
Yeah, and I see it from like the artsy way as well. Is it's like this helps you avoid being bogged down by sort of base level questions, I suppose, and more like technical questions, and leaves you time to have more of the creative and design focused questions. I feel like it's sort of what happens on these streams, especially at the start. I will show off what I've been working on, and then you'll throw me some questions, and sometimes they're questions that's like, oh, I should have written that down somewhere in a design document, and sometimes it's questions that further push the design thinking. And so, yeah, I mean, my favorite are those ones where it's sort of challenging the whole design premise, and it's not just something that you write down an answer. You have to sort of go back and think about and see if it applies or doesn't.
Yeah, and you want to make sure you're capturing those questions, you're getting those questions well before you're starting to your development. Because like if they're showstoppers, or if they're really core things, you want to make sure that you answer those questions as soon as possible, in case it really impacts the overall design.